Released in 1961, the sports drama directed by Robert Rossen, based off the 1959 novel of the same name from Walter Tevis, stars Paul Newman, George C. Scott, Piper Laurie, and Jackie Gleason. Newman then reprises his role of Fast Eddie Felson in the 1986 adaptation of Tevis's 1984 novel, also of the same name, this time directed by Martin Scorsese. He stars alongside Tom Cruise, and it even garnered Newman his first Oscar win for Best Actor. Today on You've Never Seen It, we're talking about The Hustler and, of course, The Color of Money. Wait till you hear how professional I start to sound.
I know. I remember. I got 10 minutes into the first one. And
you did, and then you never listened to another one. I'm going to keep this all in, by the way. And here we go. Welcome to You've Never Seen It, an audio podcast where I am on a mission to never hear these four words again. I'm your host, Allison Salamone, and joining me today is a very good friend of mine. He's a stand-up comedian, or was at some point, I think, the founder of a wonderful organization called Stand Up for Downs, as well as the Veneer method. I am joined by Rob Snow. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Allison.
How are you?
It sounds so professional.
I know, right? I'm getting really good at these intros. This is like the fourth or fifth one that I've not had to like redo. Because I think it's my ADD or my OCD or something where if I'm doing my intros and I mess something up, I gotta go all the way back.
Yeah.
I also hate editing, so I'd rather cut out a whole chunk than...
You sound like you're auditioning for a lot of serial podcasts.
I'm trying. I'm so professional.
That would be bad.
I love a good true crime, so, you know,
That's right.
And I love a good conspiracy. Before I get into these movies real quick, I feel like I need to tell the story of how we met, because I kind of feel like me having a podcast is almost all your fault. Like it's an origin story, my origin story. Right. So we met in 2014?
That sounds good.
Right? Like whatever it was, National Down Syndrome Conference, Congress convention in Indianapolis. My whole family is there. And we see this booth you have set up that says Stand Up for Downs. And at the time, I was a makeshift wannabe stand-up comedian, but it was way too much work. So I quit very soon after.
Did I start your podcast career and end your comedy career that
100% in one night. But for those who, for everyone who doesn't know, I've talked about him before. I have an older brother with Down syndrome. I also have another brother and a younger sister. So there's a lot of us, and we are a lot, and we just bulldozed our way into your lives. We sat down and did you were recording your own podcast at the time. That was the first podcast I've ever been on.
Yeah.
So never did one before. Yeah. And then when you released it, I went and listened to the part that had me in it, and then nothing else.
Yeah. I did them when it was cool.
Before everyone had you were the hipster podcast.
If only like that would have been my MO for when I bought some stock or something like that. No, I did crappy podcasts when there wasn't good equipment to do it, and none of them sounded good. And
with all the background noise of a giant conference.
It's terrible.
It was so great.
But you guys were awesome. I do remember that.
Oh, it's fun. And now here we are, full circle moment where I have you on mine. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
So we're doing another double feature, because as I started watching The Hustler and I was texting with you and I was talking with other friends of mine, everyone kept bringing up, are you also watching The Color of Money? So it kind of made sense at that point to at least watch it. And then I'm like, well, now we got to talk about both of these. Like you can't, I feel like you can't talk about one without the other.
No, it's a great point.
And so kind of going into, we can start with The Hustler, because that was the movie when I sent you my list. This was the one that you wanted to watch, and
Mhm.
you were like set on it. So what is it? Even before all that, what is your just history surrounding film and movies? Is it something you do? You love watching movies? Are you a buff? Are you more of a casual watcher? Where would you like put yourself?
Yeah, I'm not a casual watcher. I love movies, always have. And I just everything. And I don't think I'm a movie snob either, because I definitely appreciate, kind of the bad movies. I appreciate blockbuster movies, like really everything. But I feel like I can get somewhat, in the deep with people with, critically analyzing movies. So I'm kind of all over the board, but I definitely have my favorites, and I studied film to some extent in college. In
Did
my
you really? I don't think I
it was
knew that about you.
it was within my major. So I
Okay.
took a great major called mass communications, and it really
You've done
was
so
like
well with
all
it.
encompassing. No, I'm speaking to the masses right now, or two or two of you,
Pretty much.
who's
That's
ever
about
listened.
where that's where our numbers lie. Maybe five if we're lucky.
I was like, what is mass communications? And then I become a public speaker, and I'm like, oh, now I'm doing that.
Got it.
I'm
Got
speaking to masses.
it.
20 years later. But there was history of film, history of TV classes. I mean, literally a class that you just went in and watched these 10 films that the professor chose and wrote a paper about 4 of them. That was the whole class. I mean, you talk about what a great major
Yeah.
and good use of parents' funds, thankfully, that they could afford to send me to a state school. But anyway, same with TV. And I would just like be so into it. And then I dabbled with acting and certainly comedy and all of that. And then some elements of writing, and I've written things. So it all just fascinates me. But I mean, to bring us back to why here and why now and why the Hustler,
Yeah.
and so I've had these different moments in my life that this man has touched me in some way, and you can edit.
Paul Newman's estate's gonna come after me and be like, "Excuse me."
This would be the one man that I feel like I'd be okay, because he's a
He's
god.
handsome.
He's the
He
most
was.
beautiful human being alive.
Oh my god! I was watching The Hustler, and literally, I
How
think I
can you not
texted.
keep your eyes off?
He's so good. Like
Yeah,
you talk about like Hollywood leading man,
yeah,
and like when I've always had like the Humphrey Bogarts, the Clark Gables, like
yeah.
Paul
Oh, no,
Newman, if he's not number one or at least number two for some people, like the
yeah.
man is, I don't care what he's saying. I just want to look at him.
So he was. It's interesting because what I'll also tell your listeners is to watch if they have it. I think it's on HBO, but Ethan Hawke just did this insane documentary during COVID on Paul and Joanne Woodward, his wife
Hmm.
of 60 years or whatever it was, his second wife. And Joanne Woodward was, at least certainly in the early years, even a bigger star than him. She had won, I think, at least one Academy Award, was up for many. Really one of the greatest actresses ever. And they found each other and just had this storied, you know, tumultuous at times, but really just incredible, like, relationship and, you know,
Yeah.
romance. And so, but Ethan Hawke put this together. Um, and so but there's all these different times. And so, meaning like I've loved his movies, I just love his movies. Uh, I loved him older. And then I started going back and watching, the young ones, and how different he became, and, two different styles. And that's why it's great that you watch The Hustler and Color of Money, because you see both styles. You see
Yeah.
this kid, almost this cocky, beautiful specimen of the human being who's just so arrogant and sure of
Hmm.
himself in a really cool way. And then in The Hustler, and then you see the older, wise as can be, also sure of himself and also beautiful,
Yeah.
like handsome as hell still.
Yeah.
And
So handsome.
yeah, but really with him though, it was obviously the acting, but then, this guy, his charity stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in that, of course, and his philanthropy beyond nearly any movie star ever
Yeah.
has been just historic. I mean, he's really the GOAT in terms of his philanthropy. Um,
Well, yeah, because
maybe,
like all the new, I think it's Newman's Own. We love using Newman's Own products in
yeah,
our house because after taxes, everything else goes to profit. Like
every-
every other profit goes to charity.
yeah, and it's interesting. They're having some like family battles now with it, but of like who owns what and who gets it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of sad, but um, for the longest time and now, but that money goes to so many amazing things. And then he went and built this camp called the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp, based on his gang and Butch Cassidy, and he it's for terminally ill children, and he doesn't allow press. He goes. He used to go. I had a friend who was a counselor at the camp,
Oh wow,
and he would go one day every week, every year,
that's so
to
cool.
each of these camps, and he would see these. He would not allow any press, so he just got to be there, and they just, I mean, just beautiful. And then his racing stuff. He's still the oldest race race car driver to ever win a professional race. I mean, he became a very good racer. Like, so just these crazy things with this guy, and just the coolest dude ever. So
Yeah,
anyway,
no,
that's
that's
why I love Paul Newman.
how can you not love Paul Newman? I
Yeah.
mean, hearing all these things, like it's being a good guy for the sake of being a good guy because he can. It kind of comes back to like how my dad's always kind of said the old verse, to whom much is given, much is also expected.
Yeah.
So it's someone who much has been given and he does it just out. That's always when someone is genuine and a good person, just someone you'd want to grab a drink with.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why I hang out with you, but
He was in his 50s, and he was being interviewed, or maybe his 60s, and he was doing this interview, and they said, why the philanthropy? Like, what's so important about it? And he said, um, he goes, because I never wanted my tombstone to read, um, he he died because he died because his eyes turned brown, which meant he didn't want to just be this guy that was
yeah,
just known for these blue eyes,
yeah.
And I don't know. It just there's another movie that you should watch, and I can't wait to get into Hustler. But um, I was in college, and you think you're so cynical in college and everything, and I was a fan of his, but still like not probably to what I am today. And I just went up. There was a movie called Nobody's Fool,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched it and with friends, and it wouldn't be any kind of movie you'd like go see in college, or just you wouldn't just pick it. Only I would pick it just because I'm a weird movie guy. And it ended, and I was half kind of crying, and I just go, okay, so that's what a perfect movie is.
Okay.
Like, that's literally the one of the few movies. I mean, there's better movies than it. You can take your
Mm-hmm.
Godfathers and anything else you want, but it just was so perfect to me. Like, it just was so beautiful, and everything about it. And it was just him. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's like that. I feel like that feeling that you're describing is the feeling that I had the first time I really sat down and watched Casablanca.
really.
Like, yeah, like I thought, I mean, I didn't even want to watch it. It was one of the things.
Mhm.
I was in high school and I was homesick and flipping through Turner Classic Movies, and my dad was there. And my dad was like, "Oh, this is they're about to start Casablanca. We have to watch." I was like, "Ugh, fine." And then as soon as the movie rolled, I was just like, this, I mean,
Yeah.
it's my favorite. It's still to this day my favorite movie of all time.
Wow.
But as soon as the credits rolled, I was enthralled with it. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to watch it again. But backtracking a little bit into The Hustler, when did you first see this movie?
So it's a really good question. I don't know. I knew you were going to ask me that, and I'm like, I think I should know this movie that I've told you must watch. But I want to say I don't think it was that film class. But then I'm like, why would I have watched just some old, you know,
Yeah.
old movie like that? What would have made me? And I'm sure the film class inspired me to watch older movies, but like Casablanca, we watched that,
Hmm.
of course. But
Did you
I
see
would
this first before seeing The Color of Money, or did you see Color of Money first?
Color Money first.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I didn't eat actually. So I've probably seen The Hustler now 3 times. So I haven't like watched it like religiously.
Hmm.
Um, but each time I learned something new, and this time I picked up on what a sequel Color of Money actually is, because I didn't put those together when I watched Color of Money first. I
Yeah.
knew it was him. I knew it was Fast Eddie Felsen, but I didn't know like it's really it's really a
It's
parallel.
really it's kind of the idea that's become so big in these times of that whole idea of that legacy sequel, like
Yeah,
the Top Gun Maverick or the
yeah,
latest Scream that came out. Like it's the legacy sequel before it, like
yeah,
legacy sequels were really a thing. That was the other comments that I got a lot when I and I'll get at least I was talking to you before all this, and I'll get more into it as we get into the movies. But when I put out my tweet and on Facebook, just asking people for their, kind of like that whole alien versus aliens, debate, like how did people feel about Color of Money versus The Hustler? And the one thing that kept coming up that everyone kept saying is that they would love now to see another legacy sequel on top of it, of Tom Cruise coming
right.
back as Vince doing the Fast Eddie thing and finding a new
This is just like this
yeah.
circle. This
Yeah, just
just
keep it going.
he's already doing that with I think a couple of movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But then you'd
talk
have to convince Tom Cruise that he's old and give him great.
right. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Well, and I like it's a totally side point, but I like the retreads on some of these things.
Hmm.
Like I kind of got into the karate thing, and then it annoyed me after the Karate Kid thing.
Oh, the Cobra Kai show.
Yeah, and then I was like, all right, one season I get it, but I was like, oh, wouldn't that be fun if like you had like a Family Ties spinoff or like just like, where are they now? What? Yeah. Anyway, totally digress. But yeah, I think that's a good point, and that's what I in this when I rewatched it before this podcast, that's what I was thinking. I was like, gosh, it's so similar, and
Hmm.
it kind of bummed me out actually that it made probably The Hustler in my mind maybe a better movie, um, just because that was the original
Yeah.
and then Scorsese kind of copied, you know,
Hmm.
kind of just made the same movie.
With
Um,
the Scorsese spit on it, and
yeah,
like his
yeah,
random up close shots of like cute,
yeah,
like and like strange 80s cutaways with like that noir music
yeah.
in the
There's
background.
this, there's a score in there that keeps coming back, and it just
Yeah.
it's odd, but it's still great. I loved it so much, and just to see him later in life and how he's I'm back.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
come
the
on,
way that The Color of Money ends is
yeah,
just, I love when there's, I mean, I love a clear cut ending, like you kind of get, like you get with The Hustler, but then also I love one like Color of Money where it's just one of those things where like if I don't beat you now, it's gonna be later, and it's gonna be
yeah,
later, and it's just gonna keep happening because Paul Newman's like, screw you, kid, like you're only here because I brought you here
yeah.
at this point.
And they both, um, yeah. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I don't know if you want me to,
I don't
but
care. There's
they
really no structure to this. We just talk about it.
good, good.
It's great.
But there's in the Newman final scene, he's being kind of who he was in the final scene against
Hmm.
Fats.
Hmm.
Just totally, just sure of himself,
Yeah.
like just sure. But he he says that line like, if I don't beat you now, I'm going to beat you in Florida. It's funny. He goes, I'm going to beat you in Florida, and she goes New York. He goes New York, Florida, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's such a
All
cool
yeah. The way that
line.
he's so cool.
Yeah, it's almost like he made a mistake, and they kept it in there, and he just went with it, and it made more sense because he's like, I don't care where I'm going. I'm going to beat you.
Yeah.
And then he and then but the line is actually from when he first plays Minnesota Fats. Because I think when he first plays them, he goes, "I may not beat you tonight, but I'm going to beat you."
Yeah.
And I always thought that was in the second time he played him, but rewatching, I was like, no, he said it in the first part before he got all drunk and
Yeah.
stupid.
And I love in going back into The Hustler and how it parallels into, because they're both based off of the novel by the same person. He wrote a sequel, The Color of Money, to The
Oh wow!
Hustler. Yeah. And like the novel for Color of Money came out in like 1984. So it all picks up like 25 years after
Okay.
the first one. But in The Hustler, there are so many good kind of, because also, I mean, we talk a lot about Paul Newman, but I feel like we need to also say how incredible George C. Scott is in The Hustler as well, as kind of the
Yeah.
stakeholder in all of it. And the way that
Steak
he,
horse.
what?
Steak horse.
Yeah, stakeholder, sorry. Stakeholder, same difference. God damn it. Well, that I'm gonna edit out. No, I'm not.
Oh no, no.
No, I won't. But when Burt Gordon is telling him how one of the best things you can do in sports is learn how to feel sorry for yourself, and
Yeah.
like is sitting there when Paul Newman says, "Well, I got drunk." He's like, "Yeah, it's a great excuse to use." That's why he says why he drinks milk during
Yeah.
when people are gambling, because being drunk is a great excuse to use when you lose, and I don't like to lose.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like I hadn't remembered that speech. I just remember him calling him a loser and then kind of explaining it later. But I didn't remember how well he explained it. And that writing's so good and it's so true. I mean, a couple things. One, you can have talent all day long,
Right.
but this idea of character.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at the greats. Michael Jordan, and okay, I'm a huge LeBron fan, right? I'll get hate mail for that or whatever, but they have character. I mean, every great has this other side. I mean, I watched Serena the other night in her last match.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about character, like, and good or bad. It doesn't have to be this like super sweet character.
No.
Sometimes it's a vicious like killer character. But that's what he had. And then going to Color of Money, he has the same talk with him. He says, "You're a terrific flake."
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just yeah. But then to describe losing like that, like the excuse piece of it, it's so true. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're giving yourself that excuse.
And then Felsen, I think I texted you this line, but when he decides he's gonna go with Burt Gordon and like go on the road with him doing things, he was like, "In Burt, what made you change your mind?" And Eddie Felsen says 25% of something something big is better than 100% slice of nothing.
Yeah.
And you're just like, yeah.
That's what you hear all the time now.
Yeah.
I heard that in so many different iterations of that. And I didn't realize it came from there, but yeah, exactly. He just had nothing. He knew he had to play Minnesota. He still had that in his head.
Right.
That's my only goal in life is to play him and beat him. Just his when he's playing Minnesota, and Gleason gets some props too for not saying a whole lot.
Yeah.
The guy probably had 5 lines. You talk about Jackie Gleason, one of the greatest actors and like characters of all time, and he just is not. I mean, he's a character in it, but
yeah,
like compare him to like
how you got Paul Newman being young and cocky and just talking, and just trying to, and that scene where, and Burt Gordon brings it up when they were talking about it, how he's drunk. Fast Eddie's drunk, and what did Minnesota Fats do? He went into the bathroom. He washed his hands, composed himself, came back out, and then that's how he won the game.
That's a fun one too if you're kind of a film person, because you can see that immediately, and film people would. If you're just going with a casual movie watcher, they wouldn't notice that. And I was watching that going, I was like, oh, I bet when he comes back from the bathroom, I bet they're going to show Newman just totally disheveled.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And
The
Yeah.
Hustler is a lot darker than The Color of Money, because you also have Newman's relationship in that movie with Piper Laurie's character
Yeah.
Sarah, and
Yeah.
like how that ends up going for her.
Yeah. It's, you really got to appreciate, you know, that part to me is where you got to just, you're in it for Newman at that point, because it does, I do think there's a middle chunk that gets a little dull.
Yeah.
The scenes with them, it's just a little redundant to me, and they're a little hard to watch just because I'm like, oh God, okay, come on, I want to get back to the action. Like,
Right. Right.
let's
I
get
mean,
Scott back in the mix, and then when they do, it just comes, when he comes back in the mix, it's like,
mhm.
and it just picks up steam like crazy.
And it's interesting. I feel like from watching The Hustler and how Sarah gets treated and how that gets handled, the way that they go into The Color of Money and how Paul Newman knows, like, he uses Tom Cruise's girlfriend against her, but also with them to, because it's kind of like he's learned from what's happened before and how he can, again, manipulate this whole situation. No one in these movies are good people at the end of the day. Like, when you really think about it,
Yeah.
they're all not great
Well,
people.
they're hustlers.
Right.
They're trying to scam people out of money. You know, and they live on it. You know,
Uh-huh.
they don't really care. The amount of times in The Hustler that Newman just, you know, she says, "I love you," and he's like,
He doesn't even give her an "I know." He's just like, okay. Like,
you know,
he doesn't say anything.
He goes, "Do you need to hear the words?"
Yeah.
Which I was like, "Oh God, who could get away with that?"
I was like, could you imagine saying that to your lovely wife?
You need to hear the words. And she was like, "No, I guess not."
Ellen, on the other hand, yes, Rob.
Yeah. But then he, you know, he said he did love her and stuff. I mean, just, and then he could just explode kind of with this viciousness, like when he before he got his thumbs broken in The Hustle, like when
right.
he's like, "Come on, kid," you know. I mean, he had to like yell at that guy so bad, and then got his thumbs broken, but he just had so much rage in him, and oh, it was beautiful.
Oh my god. So I'm looking on Wikipedia because this is like, if it's on Wikipedia, it's true.
Always.
This was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards when it came to actors in it, but I guess George C. Scott refused the nomination for The Hustler as for Best Supporting Actor. I don't know why. It just says it did. But
it just says it. There's
says
no
it
story behind that.
I mean, I'm sure there is, and I'll figure it out later, or someone will yell at me about it. I know that he had refused, and I'd also seen that he had refused for Pat. Like, it's almost like the way that it read was that he refused these wins and these nominations because he just didn't like how Hollywood was doing things with them. And so he was like, right? Like, no, I'm just good. Like, I know I'm good. I don't need you to tell me I'm good.
Right. I'm just going to keep that to me.
How nice is that? What a badass. Well, now, like, I feel like I have to know all these things. I'll do more research.
Here's an interesting one on Paul Newman. So, like, you said he was like the number one or number two leading man, and he was.
Uh-huh.
But he wouldn't have been if James Dean didn't die. And so
I didn't even think about that.
He talks about almost owing his career to James Dean, James Dean's death, because they were good friends. And him and Brando and James Dean all at the same time. They all studied at the same, I think it was like Adler or something like that, and around the same time. And then Brando and James Dean were getting everything, and Newman was third rate, and he was getting like the scraps, and barely that. And then James Dean died, and they started going with Newman on everything.
Oh man,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's almost like Newman's like, it's kind of like what they're saying too. It's like, I would feel bad, but also like, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, but we could have been deprived of just the way.
Yeah.
Just him.
Oh, for sure. The other thing that I think is interesting when it comes to both of these movies is the idea, and I've kind of discussed this in my episode on Moneyball, in the idea of the sports movie and what makes something
Hmm.
a sports movie. So both of these are listed as sports and drama. Like,
Yeah.
and one of the people that my friend Alex, her when she responded when I asked about these movie versus the others, her response to it was, um, "The Hustler is in contention for arguably one of the or for the best sports movie of all time, while Color of Money is arguably Scorsese's worst film." So very.
Ouch. What? Oh, I don't agree with her.
It's okay. A lot of people don't, but she's so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. She's awful. Oh, no, I mean, to each their own. I just, yeah, the sports movie, but see, that's the thing. Like some people will say like, oh, it's a sports movie. It's like, I think I talked you into this movie,
You did.
Warrior. Yeah. And,
But yeah,
sports movie for sure.
it's so funny you bring that up because like some of the people who do listen to this, because you've been talking to me about Warrior for forever, and then I joined this little movie space, and that's like one of like everyone in that group's
Yeah.
like favorite movie of like
Yeah.
number one sports movie ever. So it's kind of like this is a fun little full circle
But when they're
moment right
good,
here.
when they're like, yeah, I mean, sometimes people will like throw it into a category of sports, and if you just are like, I'm not really into sports, so I'm not going to watch that movie, you're going to miss Color Money, Hustler, Warrior, my God, The Natural,
Mm-hmm.
Hoosiers. I mean, Rocky. Like, Rocky's one you got to go back and watch just because it's just one of the most beautiful movies ever made, and the acting in it is just unbelievable. And then the
Yeah.
story of it. It's like, what? This guy Sylvester Stallone that we make fun of his voice and his,
Yeah.
wrote this and had it was sleeping in a car, and then they offered to buy it for $300,000 and he didn't take it. Like, it's such an insane story. But that's sports movies, and they do always, they do follow a similar thing. There's always this like, there's a great thing that
Yeah.
they do, and then something bad happens, and then they come back, obviously, at the end.
Right.
Sports movies are really comeback
And
movies.
every now and then you get a good montage. Like we got a good montage in Color of Money when after he gets hustled by a young Forrest Whitaker.
Oh,
Right?
yeah, it was a weird montage, right? Swimming, and then he's trying on a new suit. Oh,
And getting the glasses. He's getting new glasses. And you're just like,
weird. Yeah. It was,
okay,
if
Scorsese.
didn't do it, people might be like, that's not very good.
It was a choice for
Yeah.
sure. It was
Yeah.
absolutely a choice. But yeah, that weird like little montage going from that to yeah. It's why I can see because I agree. I agree in the sense that The Hustler is the better film. Which
Yeah.
one would I go back and watch more first? Probably The Color of Money. And strictly
It keeps you going more. for
right.
sure.
And you have, I mean, The Color of Money is, well, yes, you have Newman back as Fast Eddie Felson, which, by the way, finally gets him his Academy Award for Best
Yeah.
Actor, was Color of Money. But you also have a very young, very energetic Tom Cruise being like
Who plays it incredible.
incredible.
Yeah.
What did I say? I was talking with a friend of mine and I asked him, I was like, so since you've let me know your feelings on The Hustler versus Color of Money, now who had better hair? Eddie Felson in The Hustler or Tom Cruise in The Color of Money? And he responded with this gif of like, from like the trailer, it's like his
Yeah.
hair was perfect with like Tom Cruise like putting his
hair.
hands.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were both kind of that was a similar scene too, where and the others you have, where Cruz it gets so cocky with that guy and he's like it's like a nightmare, isn't it, or something?
Yeah.
And and he gets so cocky, and then he gets up and leaves. Eddie Felson gets up and leaves, and in the same breath, when Felson was playing Fats the first time, his guy, his stake horse, got up and left, and then knew right away. He knew when he
Yep.
failed right away. You could just see in his face. And so it's funny because in the second one, Fast Eddie plays both those guys. He plays both. He plays all three. He plays himself. Plays Fast Eddie again, but then he plays his first stake horse, and then he plays George C. Scott.
Yeah.
Because he kind of messes around with the girl. There's a weird scene in Color Money where it's like, is he gonna, or is she? What's she doing? Is she coming on to him? And
yep.
So he plays. It's that's why Color Money is maybe deeper than we think, just because he's playing so many different kind of roles, and he's really struggling still after all these years with who he is, and you can tell he's kind of successful.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got this nice car, but he's kind of pseudo successful, or like,
It's successful in a way that a hustler could be successful. Like he's, a whiskey salesman, but he's also still hustling at pool when he can. Like he mentions it himself too. I do think it's interesting that I feel like it was a way to kind of separate the two, maybe story wise. I haven't read either books, but you're doing straight pool in The Hustler, and in Color of Money, you're getting a 9-ball, which is.
I wonder if that was the sign of the times decision.
I feel like it would have to be. Because I feel like that was like what was big at the, and even and Newman says it too when he starts like getting and talking with Tom Cruise. That the reason people are going with 9-ball, it's a faster game, it's a quicker game, it's easier to be one and done with the way that the rules work, and how if you get this one in first or that one, so it kind of makes he makes it make sense why it's 9-ball, which I thought was really interesting.
Do you play? Do you play pool? Have you ever played pool?
So funny story. I have played pool. I'm not good at pool, but the reason I learned I'm not good at pool is one time when I was playing it back when I worked at this bar restaurant as a server and like door girl for like the billiards club next door. The manager and I were playing, and he goes, "How did you do in geometry?" I said, "I failed." And he goes, "And that's why you suck at pool." I went, "Oh, so I did need it." So it's good.
Yeah. Well, and then in Color Money, he draws it, right? He doesn't he do lines and like show the geometrical shapes and everything.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I was decent. Like I was halfway decent at it. And, to the point that I could run a table for a few games before somebody beat me and stuff. It was, but it was, there's something to it that is so, you feel so cool and kind of powerful, and you're just playing pool, and probably nobody else in the pool hall or room or bar thinks you're that cool, but you just feel it, and so that you do get a little bit of swagger, especially if you run 4 or 5 balls in a row and kind of make some bank shots and see those angles.
Well, those cool shots, right? Like the one scene where I think it's during the tournament where Tom Cruise breaks, and then the 9 and the 1 hit, or like the 1 and the however it was, it hit like together to where he immediately won the game because Turturro I think he was playing Turturro, or he was playing the other, whatever it was. Speaking of which, young John Turturro in that movie, that was a fun treat. I love a good Turturro.
You just want a guy to come in and just, whether it's 4 minutes or the full movie, just blow it up, blow up his scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring in Turturro.
100%.
Yeah, every single time.
So would you then agree with, and we've kind of gone over but would you agree with the sentiment that my buddy Ben said, my buddy Ben Bateman responded with, Hustler, the better movie, Color of Money, more enjoyable?
I still don't know, because I think there's this way that Newman acted when he was younger, and it's a weird style, but then when you watch some of the 50s and 60s movies, like you kind of see it in some of those actors, and it's very acting.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell they're acting so much, and if you just like those types of movies, then you don't mind it. And I certainly didn't mind it with Newman, but he's acting. I mean, he's like, oh, come on. It's like
Yeah.
he's really dramatic and, but that was kind of how people acted. I mean, look at your Casablanca. I mean, my
Yeah.
God, every scene, it's especially, I'm going to get so many, especially the women. The women, it was very, and even like Piper Laurie, and it was just like, it just seemed so acting, but was how they made movies back then. But then you go to Color of Money, and now you see this Paul Newman that's just like, you couldn't even tell he was acting for anything. I mean, just how he acted is probably it was the exact same way he interviewed, just cool as could be. And I don't know. So I liked both styles. But yeah, Color of Money for me, maybe a little better.
Oh, okay. So you're on the other end.
Yeah, honestly, I might be. And it is more entertaining, probably just because of that.
Sure.
The how I said that the middle stuff in The Hustler got a little boring to me, but those two pool scenes with Fats, those are it doesn't get much better than those.
No, they
well, and then it's Speed.
What was
Are
that?
we allowed to do spoilers?
Yeah, that was
Are we allowed
1961. If they haven't seen it by now, like we're good. No, this is full spoilers. You can drop an F-bomb if you wanted to, Rob. I'd allow it.
Oh my gosh. Oh my good Lord.
One F-bomb and we're PG-13. That's all though. So make sure you choose wisely where you put it.
No, the speech at the end in Hustler of you're gonna have to kill me.
Yep.
It's just it's I feel like I've seen that repeated in other movies and they probably stole it from it, but I can't think of the movie right now or the movies, but it's like you're just gonna have to kill me.
Yeah.
You're gonna beat me down. But which is I mean, even if you went to Cool Hand Luke, I mean that was kind of his thing there too. If you ever saw Cool Hand Luke.
Nope, that's why I have a podcast.
Oh my gosh, that's the next one. You're going to become a big Paul Newman person now.
You're going to be my go-to Paul Newman expert is what's going to happen is we'll just have to do like a Paul Newman episode once a month or so. And we'll bring you back.
he had demons too. He had big demons.
Yeah.
He wasn't a perfect guy, but
sure.
Great man.
It's so great. So if I asked you what your top 3 moments of The Hustler would be, which ones would you say? What would you say it is?
So, okay. So the second go around with Fats is probably my first.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first one's the second. So the first go around with Fats is the second favorite. Then I want to get deep on the third one here. I'll
edit the pauses and post. It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's that scene with Bert, when he describes what being a loser is. They're just in the bar at that point. But yeah.
Oh, definitely. I'm gonna cheat and probably lump the two Fats matches like with each other, only because I want to add in the scene when they're in St. Louis, I think is where they're at, or wherever they are, and they think they're about to hustle this one guy, and he opens the table, and it's just it's billiards. It's not.
Yeah, they're in Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville. That's where they are.
Yeah.
And it's billiards, and Paul Newman's like, I can do it, and like he starts getting beaten down and then comes back to win $12,000, and he's like, we're there, and then that's when he gets back to his hotel, and his whole world has like shit the bed, like everything's,
So, yeah, that's definitely number 4 for me. I'd probably be the same if I could lump them together.
You can lump them together. I cheat.
Yeah.
I make up the rules.
Well, because the guy was so unique. That was Hal Holbrook? No.
But I got IMDb pulled up. Let me see.
But he was so great. And so there's something to notice in that. And if you are really a film snob, you would have figured this out. I did not, but I did this time around. So he won $12,000.
Yes.
And do you remember the split?
It was the split was 75-25, right?
So how much did that leave Newman?
On 1200,
On 12 grand.
on 12 grand would have left him, I don't do math.
Or yeah, three grand. It left him 3 grand.
Right.
And he said many times throughout that, or he said when he was talking to Bert before all of this, before he was even going to go, he said, well, what do you want to do? He goes, or I think it was when he had that scene with his old manager, actually. Either way, it was known that for him to play Fats again, he needed 3 grand. He was going to do it if Fats was going to let him even do it. The first game every game was going to be worth 3 grand.
Okay.
And they said it before. So when he got the 3 grand and then he went back to the hotel room and she was dead, he had 3 grand. So he was like, I can walk away. I have what I need. And then the next scene, he shows up in the pool hall, faces Fats with his 3 grand. Because then he goes, I got one game. I got 3 grand. It's all I got. It's everything I got. It's my whole life. Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
So I don't know if you picked up.
I didn't. I did not. No, I was too busy noticing. The one thing that bothered me that I noticed was after she had written on the mirror in lipstick, she had done the twisted in all capital letters with the one lowercase d. And then when you find her dead, if you look at the mirror, the twisted is now suddenly written in all lowercase letters.
Oh, come on. Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Is that fun? So that's where that's
movie. Just ruined the movie.
That ruined the whole thing. She was never really dead. No, just kidding.
You should do another podcast called like Movie Mistakes.
Right, I really should. So we have the favorite. So then moving into The Color of Money, what would you say your top 3 moments are in that one?
All right. The dinner scene when he's schooling him. He's like, you're a terrific flake. Because Cruz is so great. He's so cocky, and then he completely insults him.
Yeah.
And then so the dinner scene, God, that Forrest Whitaker scene's so good.
It's so good.
You a hustler?
Do you hustle me? And like, I feel like
remember what Forrest Whitaker says?
Is it at one point? It's like, if you don't got to pay me any money, it's
at the
end of it's like, do you think I need to lose some weight?
Yeah. What was that?
It's just being a dick to be a dick.
Really?
Like, I don't
know. I think that's deeper than that. It's something. It was so interesting. Like he just goes, "Hey, Eddie, I think I need to lose some weight." Like, what the hell? It was so weird. I love that scene, and then of course, the final scene when they.
I would add in for mine. I think one of mine would be when he goes and sees Vince at work and tries to like convince him some more, and like especially like with this whole relationship and using his using Carmen at that point. But as he's walking away, he's like, keep the shirt. It's a good touch. And like that becomes the thing that he's wearing when they're out hustling. It's just a shirt with his name on it.
Right.
It says, I loved that. That's one of my big. I also really liked the scene where, I mean, the end of it, obviously, but a toss up between the Forrest Whitaker one and then the one where Tom Cruise is trying to play, and the hustle in that one is Paul Newman with his girlfriend, and like afterwards, just how he it just shows you like how young of a mindset he has in all of this, and it's almost like Paul Newman's just doing these things just to irk him and prove a point and try to show him that he does. And each step, just kind of like in the first one, each step is like, who's really hustling who in all of this, right? Like, who's going to be the one that ends up coming out on top?
Well, then that's actually, you know what? Now I got to throw that scene where where he comes into the hotel room
with the dump, right? Yeah.
Yes. And just, like at first you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Like he dumped it. And then you realize Cruz knew, like he's acting all like, we did it. This is great, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Here's your percent. Here's your take. It worked. But what Cruz knew, he'd grown up so much. He knew that was what Eddie, that was his ultimate payback to him.
Yeah.
To know that he dumped and he didn't get his best game. And
Yep. Well, especially, I think it hits so hard too because you get that quick moment where he walks out of like where everyone's congratulating him and he just walks outside and does one of those silent like cheers, like, fuck yeah, like I'm back in it. There's our F bomb. You can't use it now.
He just feels like this, and then he puts his pool cue back and he puts it in and he walks away.
Yeah. And he's so excited about it. And then Cruz comes in and it's just, you just watch his face.
Yeah.
The way that Newman acts that whole scene was, I mean, obviously there's a reason why you won an Oscar for this movie because it was just done. So, and you get a lot of, I feel like you also in that scene with Amos after he gets hustled by Amos, you get some classic Newman moments like that kind of overacting how he was in The Hustler. And it was like, oh, they broke my thumbs, like you're getting kind of that right in there too. So I feel like you run the whole gamut of Paul Newman as a character and as that going through all the things as Fast Eddie.
Isn't it funny when he goes in that room, all four of them, both women and both men they know exactly. Everybody knows, like because Newman's girlfriend's looking at him like, oh my God, like she knows that. But meanwhile, they're all playing the charade like, hey, here's your money.
Yeah.
This is great. And Vince knows, of course, and Vince's girlfriend knows, and Newman knows. Everybody knows that he just punked him so bad and in the worst possible way. And then you think like, this would be cool to think about, but like maybe Cruz knew. Like, how did Cruz know that would be the ultimate thing to kill him, just to destroy him?
And it's one of those, and he plays it off so well though, but but again, like whatever, they have these long car rides, like whatever's spoken that's not spoken. And I think part of it too, he probably learned from when he watched how he reacted after getting punked by Amos and how hard he took it. And like,
Cruz didn't see that though.
No, Cruz saw the reaction. Like
that's where he goes.
And that's when he's like, "We're done. You don't need me." And he's trying. So I think Tom Cruise knew how to get under his skin.
Well,
right.
But here's what I think. I don't think. Well, it'd be fun to think if this was true, but like, if in Cruz's time away from him, he found out about the true story about Fast Eddie. And he found out that all he ever wanted was Fat's best game.
Yeah.
That he knew, like that was his whole thing in The Hustler was, I'm only gonna like when he was up by what $18,000 or whatever in The Hustler, and he's like, nah,
not until you quit.
No, he didn't say it's his game. He didn't say, which was so honorable. And then. But he's like, you can't win unless you get somebody's best game. And it's another thing about sports. It's like, unless you get, if you're going to play the comeback, then you better go against the greatest at all times. And maybe Cruz, knowing he didn't get his best game, would have been just because he asked somebody in the time they were away together.
Yeah.
And then they told him all about him. And that's how he devised his plan.
Yeah.
That's what I like to think.
And like, what a slap in the face then to Cruz, which I think is the best thing that he could have done. The best kind of revenge that he could have done to get that best game out of him. It's Fast Eddie going, I forfeit this because I didn't win fairly. Like I didn't get the best game to win. Here's your money in front of all these people. And then just walking out. Because that's when you get Cruz coming in, yelling, screaming. And we get that phenomenal ending of like, I'm back. And like Cruz fucked up. There's number 2 F-bomb. But he did. Like he did.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so it's so excellent. They're both such good movies.
Let me ask you a question before we end. What's been your like best, your biggest surprise, or have you narrowed it down? I mean, do you have one that somebody?
Yeah, no, honestly, one of my biggest surprises was definitely, I knew it was always good because I've always heard about how good it was, but I really fell in love with When Harry Met Sally, watching that one, and talking about it. It's been and I feel like I say this all the time whenever I'm talking to people about it. It's just been so fun just talking to everyone else. The best experience about it is not only getting to watch these movies, except for The Burbs. That was a movie. Uh,
You recommended that one?
that one was I keep hearing about it. I was like, I'll watch it. I had friends who loved it. So
Yeah.
they're like, we'll do this one with you. It's one of our favorite movies. And then I disappointed them by rating it 2.5 stars.
Nice.
It's okay. It's fine. I've made up for it since then. But it's just what's been kind of really fun about it all is talking about the movies with the people who have chosen them,
Yeah.
because it can go anywhere from my buddy Amaru, when we talked about Coming to America, it's literally just an hour going back and forth with the funniest lines from that movie, because that movie is just hilarious backwards and forwards,
Yeah.
to things like this, where this conversation is your admiration and love for Paul Newman along with these movies,
Yeah.
and why you love them so much. Or the My Citizen Kane episode is a lot of like what Citizen Kane did for the film industry on top of the movie itself. So it's really kind of been each episode, no matter how good or bad the movie is, I walk out of these records with a new appreciation either
I bet.
way, you know? And I think that right there is my favorite part, is like, once this recording is done, we say our goodbyes and go on with the rest of our evenings. I'm going to have a deeper feeling of respect and enjoyment with these films, because now I have this
Yeah.
memory tied to it.
Yeah.
So
I agree. That's a good answer.
and with these with both of these movies, I came in cold. Like, I had heard about them
Yeah.
once or twice, but no idea that it was about pool. No idea what either. I mean, I knew Color of Money was about pool, and since it's the Legacy sequel, I figured The Hustler was, but I had no idea. And that's made it even kind of more fun to like not know what I'm expecting
Yeah.
going in with it. So these ones actually rank pretty high in some of my. I don't think Color of Money is as bad as some people put it in, but also my Scorsese film knowledge and experience with Scorsese, I've watched, like, I've seen Taxi Driver, I've seen this, I've seen The Departed,
Goodfellas.
I've seen. So like so like Scorsese's Mafia,
Yeah.
the way that he does those kind of movies, I've always been a big fan of. But I've also enjoyed this kind of other side with like The Color of Money and Taxi Driver and how he does that. So maybe if I had more Scorsese in my history, I might have a different feeling about Color of Money. But I think both were absolutely fantastic films. I'd watch either one of them again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I like the way you do it. Like, you're not being snobby. You're just deferring to your friends or these people that you know, and whether they have good movie knowledge or not. And you're just it's kind of like, and you're more on like, why did somebody choose this movie?
100%. And that's why there's no rhyme or reason to how these are. I literally send a list of people like, hey, you want to talk about one of these movies that's on my list? And they're like, yes. So one thing I did learn is it's not a good idea to watch David Fincher's Zodiac, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, also directed by David Fincher, and then 2 Alfred Hitchcock movies, Psycho and The Birds, all in a row.
Oh God.
Yeah. It's not.
Jeez.
Still have to record Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That one ended up having to get delayed a few times.
Was The Birds the last one of those though?
Yeah.
So that had to be a little silly.
That was that was wild.
Pretty hardcore, and then all of a sudden these
and then these birds attacking children. just attacking children.
I did not think that was good at all.
No. But with kind of all that being said, I think this is a good way to kind of start wrapping some things up. So I'm going to go into my Letterboxd account. Maybe one day I'll get a cease and desist to stop talking about them, or they'll sponsor me. This is what we go for. Either end of the spectrum. Hustler, I will say, honestly, I think The Hustler might have been my first Paul Newman movie, if I'm really thinking about it. Now I just realized, and your eyes got really big.
Oh
Think I
God.
just realized that.
Well,
But I'm
you're
gonna
gonna
go.
get an email with about 30 of them, but
It's okay. We got plenty. We have plenty more to go to
yeah.
do. I'm gonna go 4.5 stars for
Out
The
of
Hustler, out of 5.
out of 5.
Yeah,
I
and
think
then
that's solid.
Color of Money.
Ooh.
I will, and the only reason I'm probably going to, let me actually hit the film button. The only reason I'm not rating it the same as The Hustler is probably just the weird Scorsese cuts that happened. That I'm
Yeah.
just like, not a fan of that shot or how that was done. But even with that being said, I think I'm sticking at 4 stars with The Color of Money because I see myself going back and watching it again, like
Yeah.
without a doubt. Well, and I'll probably go back and watch it, like I said, before I watch The Hustler, just because it's a little bit more of an enjoyable paced watch than The Hustler for sure. So yeah, that's kind of that's where we leave it with both of those. Before we
Do I get
do you can rate them. I've never done that before. Where do they land for you,
Oh.
Paul? I just called you Paul. Rob, I don't even know your name.
It's very similar. I get it.
You
Very
guys look
similar
so much
looking.
alike. If people could just close their eyes and imagine this voice, I'm
Hey, don't
talking
over-
to the.
Don't over. Don't over. The audience knows. They get it. They hear the sarcasm. You don't need to go crazy. All right.
Don't need to make me feel bad about myself, Allison.
All right. I'm going opposite. I'm going I think I'm going reverse. I think I'm going 4 and 4-5. 4 for Hustler and 4-5. I got to leave some space. I mean, and I would, like you probably, like, those are great scores. Those are great in my movie realm. Those are great scores, top of the heap. But yeah, you got to reserve some space for a few others in there.
For sure. We've had a few 5 stars, but we'll get there. Who knows? Maybe on a rewatch, we'll see. The Burbs, 8 stars. Well, Rob, before we get out of here, what do you have going on? Tell people about these wonderful organizations that you are in charge of.
Oh, okay. So people can check out the Improv Veneer method. Very cool organization that teaches improvisation to people with developmental disabilities so that you can use those skills to greatly increase social lifetime and workplace opportunities. There's your mission statement. But we're it's crazy, Allison. Like, we're going all over the country. We just licensed our first university and certified
That's awesome.
few directors there, and then we're doing a job placement company that we hadn't done before. So it's really going great. And then we run a charity called Stand Up for Downs, where we use humor to enhance the lives of those with Down syndrome. So those 2 things, and then I got a day job, which is a lot of fun.
Something's got to pay for your one kid to go to film school, right?
That's right. Yeah, so I got a kid going to film school. How about that? Shocker.
Crazy. I love it. I got to get him on this show with parental permission, or just wait till he's 18.
He's so excited. Like, he's never interested in anything I do. I speak around the country. I do neat things, Allison, and he could care less. And then he goes, "What's the podcast you're on tonight?" And I was like, "Something about never watched this movie before, or have you ever seen this?"
Yeah.
And so I didn't remember the name.
Of course not.
But he knows you, and he's like, "Oh my God, I gotta listen to that." So he's trying to make his way through the top 100 of all time.
I love that. We'll have to chat.
Like IMDb.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's so great. Your kids are your whole family's phenomenal. I love you guys.
As is yours.
Oh, thank you. And to everyone else, if you all are enjoying what you're hearing, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to the channel Flick and Reel on whatever audio platform you're listening to us on. And if you're listening on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe and comment your thoughts on these films and any other previous movies covered so far. And also be sure to hit that little bell icon to get notifications every time we have new content drop. You can follow the show on Twitter at NeverSeenItFNR, and you can follow me at Allison Salamone. And until next time, my friends, be safe, and let's go watch some movies. See ya.